Welcome to Love to See It, a podcast about 4 breakups.
2 Bachelor breakups, 1 Love is Blind divorce, and a viral scam story about a breakup.
Today we're diving into some reality TV related news and gossip.
So buckle up, baby. First, a little housekeeping. We covered the new show Heated Rivalry, so spicy, and the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives Season 3 reunion over on Rich Text. You can find that episode and more at claireandemma.substack.com.
So let's dive in. We have been waiting for a little bit to get into this first story. It's been going crazy on TikTok for weeks now, and I finally dug in and binged the whole thing. It was the length of like
Several
2
feature
movies.
films.
Yeah. It was the length of like a feature film made by a male director today that has an intermission and you have to go in shifts. And I'm talking, of course, about Onyeka's Danish Deception. So for those who don't remember, Onyeka was a contestant on Colton Underwood's season of The Bachelor, and she is a realtor and I believe an accountant in Dallas. And she had met a man, a Danish man, and fallen in love. Their relationship had been public on Instagram. I'd see like Bachelor gossip accounts had covered it. And very recently in November, she came out with a 27-part TikTok series titled The Danish Deception, in which she recounts her 3-year marriage, like relationship and secret marriage to this man who she says deceived her.
So we're going to give you like the Cliff's Notes version of this because
No.
we simply don't have 4+ hours.
Yeah, I already have spent several hours of my life watching these videos, and we certainly can't go back into all of that.
No, so you can find all of them if you want like every last detail. You can find them on TikTok. They are in a nice little series on her profile. But the high level notes: in June 2022, she was on vacation with a friend in Croatia. On like their second day, they went to a beach club. They were in Hvar, and she met a man who she described as a tall, handsome Danish man. Later, he was named as Martin Fredsgaard Andersen. That is his
Yeah.
name.
His identity was out there because they had been publicly together, but throughout
Yes.
the series, she calls him just her ex.
Yes, my ex. She describes him in one of these early videos as looking like a, quote, Calvin Klein model, 6'3", blonde hair, blue eyes, chiseled skin, so tan, muscles everywhere. So she is like
Yeah.
enamored with this man's looks and like persona.
And so they struck up a conversation. He bought her a drink and they exchanged Instagram handles. And once she was back in the US, he started reaching out. He was replying to almost every Instagram story she posted. He was really pursuing her. And he ended up inviting her a little while later, a few months later, on a paid luxury vacation to Monaco.
He was already going to be there for work.
Yeah. He's like, just come with me to Monaco. I'll pay for it. I'll put you up. And she finally agreed. She says basically that they've been like talking so much during this intervening period that she was developing this like really deep attachment to him emotionally. She felt like they really knew each other and they were falling in love through these conversations. And so he flew her out. He booked 5-star hotels, fancy dinners. He took her shopping and was like, buy whatever you want. And she says she was trying to show that she wasn't interested in him for his money. So she wouldn't let him get her like a designer bag. And instead she just asked for like sunglasses or something. And
my new philosophy is that any woman who is offered a designer bag should simply take it from that man because like he might be doing scams and later on you're gonna
Yeah.
need that, like,
You're gonna need
collateral.
that bag
Yeah.
to pay your rent.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm torn about this because I'm like, he clearly was scamming someone else to get the money to buy her gift. So I'm like, at least
Also
maybe
true.
he needed slightly less money from his various friends and family or his previous exes,
You know what? That's a good
friends,
point.
family.
She was doing them a favor by
Yeah.
not accepting the designer bag.
She saved some Danish stranger $1,000 to $5,000. Um, but she could have used that bag in the future. So during this trip, they ended up exchanging I love yous. Their relationship felt serious. And she also had a health scare during this trip, which sounded really intense. She said that basically she feels like it was sort of her body or like fate or something warning her away from this man. But it's so intense and so random that I think a lot of people are just like, did he do this to her somehow? Like, why did this happen? And it never comes up again. She basically, they're at a club and she collapses out of
She, like, has a
nowhere,
seizure.
hits her head, and has, like, according to him, a series of seizures. He takes her to the hospital. She's like, lost control of her bladder because of the accident. So she's very embarrassed. She's bleeding. And he takes care of her. He takes her to the hospital. He tells her that he loves her at the hospital while she's in this sort of embarrassing situation. And she's like, oh, he really cares about me. And they say she basically has a concussion, and that's why a severe concussion. That's why the seizures and so on. Maybe that's really all that happened. It was just a coincidence. But ultimately, it made her feel very safe with him. And I
Very
know, like,
intense stuff.
yeah, I mean, I've had that experience with a partner where, like, early on, you're like, oh, this is a sign that I fainted or like I threw up and they took care of me. They must like actually care about me.
Right.
So after this visit, the relationship intensified very quickly. He visited her in Texas. He met her family and friends. He apparently made a very strong impression on everyone. She's like, they all loved him immediately.
He also made some claims about himself to her and to some of the people in her circle. He told her that very casually that he had been in the Olympics twice, like as like the backup to the backup,
As a handball player.
as a handball player. And
Yeah.
also that he comes from Danish royalty.
Yeah. He's like, if we get married, you're going to meet the queen because my family is royal.
And something that people pointed out is that she apparently did not do anything to try to verify these claims
Also, he
at any
made
point.
the Olympics thing was so funny because I think it kind of reveals that he is just he lies by habit, either because he's a compulsive liar or because he's used to it now. Because what happens is basically that her brother, I think, or a friend or cousin was like, "You look like an athletic guy. Like, have you ever played sports?"
And he's like,
And he's
yeah,
like,
the
"I play."
Olympics.
Well, he says, "I play handball," and he's like, "Oh, her friend or relative is like, isn't that an Olympic sport?" And so the person like inadvertently like led him right up to a very easy lie to tell. He's like, "Oh, I bet they'd believe that I played Olympic handball for Denmark. Why wouldn't they believe that? I'll just say it." And he's like, "Oh yeah, actually, yes, I did. I did go to the Olympics playing
but not in
handball."
like a big deal way, in like a
And
very
that's why
casual way.
I donated my various medals to like charity. Why would you donate your
It does
handball
not
medal to
make
charity?
sense.
What would they do with it?
I think people tend to hang on to their Olympic medals. That's my understanding.
Yeah. So she doesn't look into this. She doesn't really look into the royalty assertion. He like gives her a website about some royal strain and or group associated with it, and she's like, "Oh, that guy that it lists, it has the same last name as you." So I guess that checks out. That's the extent of the research. Around 5 months after they meet, they get engaged and have a small courthouse wedding. And I think the reason is immigration related. Like she wants to
Yes.
get started on him being able to share a life with her in Dallas.
Work and live in Dallas. And so they do not tell people, including her parents, that they are married, but they are
Yes.
married.
Yeah. And they are going to get really engaged, like have a public engagement and then have their public weddings at some point. Um, so he begins to sort of start putting in front of her that despite these huge funds that he's always flashing, that he's telling her about, he's taken her on yachts and like introduced her to businessmen. And she has the impression that he's very successful. He also has family money. But then he starts to have these cash flow issues. And it's like,
Mm.
oh, I want to buy this apartment complex. It's going to be a great business investment, this complex in Copenhagen. But um, something is not like happening with the cash flow that I need. I asked my father for the money and he says no because he thinks that I've been traveling too much recently. I would be sort of like, well, if your dad thinks you've been irresponsible with money, then I'm certainly not going to give you any money. But like finally, what he does this first time is he gets her to insist on giving him the money by saying, I really can't find I don't want to take money from you, but I can't find anyone to give me the money. And I can't come visit Dallas as planned because I'm gonna have to stay here and figure this out. It's really stressing me out. And she's like, "Well, I don't wanna miss out on this time together. Like, I really wanna see you. Please just take the money so we don't have to worry about it." And that's the first time she gives him, like, $6,000.
Honestly, it's a good scam.
And you can see how he, like, dangles these things throughout, but, like, that's the most brazen one in a sense where he's like, "I'm taking away time with me unless
You
you
pay.
pay."
And so
And
it's gonna be
he's
your
framing it like, "I don't
idea.
want the money from you, but, like, unless you pay me, you're not gonna get to see me, so
He just
don't."
he's like has his hooks into her like so deeply by this point.
Yeah, and
And they
he's
are married.
they're married, yeah, and I think also she's like, "Well, it was a little bit obscured because we would then go on trips or spend time together, and he would pay for everything. He would be buying everyone drinks, he would be paying for my flights, this, that." At first, he was mostly paying for everything. It's like, yeah, because you, like, gave him money, and then he used
I
that money
know.
to pay for
I
everything.
know. I would be like, "Wait, why are you paying for everyone's drinks if you owe me thousands of
Right.
dollars?"
Just give me my money back, but, that's not how she was in deep. So, yeah, more and more of these situations come up, crises with business or flights that he needs, and his money isn't liquid. His accounts are frozen temporarily because in Denmark, they just freeze your accounts for 18 months every now and then because they just need to figure everything out, but it's totally fine.
It's
And
fine. The business account will be available with all the
yeah.
money.
In 18 months, you will get the hundreds of thousands of dollars back because Denmark just needs to hold that account very, very frozen for that exact period of time. And then everything will be fine. And the requests are getting bigger, the needs are getting bigger. He's getting money out of her bit by bit. And she's helping him cover these expenses. Like he'll be like, I need $318,000 in taxes that I owe. And so he'll end up being like, I have a bunch of the money, but I need like $10,000 more. So she's getting like smaller amounts, but it's adding up to more and more. And she's never getting paid any of it back. And so eventually she's giving him like thousands and thousands of dollars. There's also like some confusion with her being able to meet his family. The first Christmas they're together, they're supposed to spend it together, but he suddenly is like, I have to get back surgery like 3 days before Christmas, so you can't come because I'd have to translate between you and my parents, and I don't want that to be the first time that you meet them, and I won't be able to translate very much for you. And somehow this turns into her flying him to Paris just a couple days after Christmas, and they explore Paris together. And then later she meets his parents and they seem to be perfectly fluent in English. So I'm like,
These should have been concerned, right? Like, as you listen to this story, there are many points where you're like, how did this not penetrate? How were you not more
right.
concerned?
How did you not think maybe he shouldn't fly to Paris like 5 days after back surgery? He thought he was going to be too disabled by this to translate between his parents and yourself. Now he can walk around Paris with you and fly internationally.
Well, they're constantly flying internationally. That's like every
Yeah.
part of this 27-part story includes international travel.
She later learns that basically he didn't want her to come for Christmas because he was still living with his ex and they had only just broken up. So she had been with this man for months and he was still with his ex. But putting that aside, she eventually meets his family in Denmark. They live very modestly. She's sort of like, "Oh, considering they're, like, multimillionaire royals, that's surprising, but I guess they just are very humble people."
Yeah, he's like, my family doesn't enjoy the flashy life.
Yeah, he enjoys it clearly enough for all of them. She eventually meets his friends. She gets to know them a little bit. And one of them ends up making a remark to her about Martin's past gambling addiction.
Hmm.
And she's like, "What?" And he says, "Oh, I thought he told me that he told you about his gambling addiction. It was very bad. Like, I gave him money and, like, it was a whole bad thing. He had to go to, like,
Like
rehab,
treatment.
like,
Yeah.
treatment." And so she confronts Martin and he admits to past issues, but he's like, "I've changed. That's all like 10 years in the past, and I'm not that man now." And she's like, "Okay, well, I want to be supportive. Like, sickness and health, addiction is a sickness. I'm here for you." She's like, "We're going to work on this together." In April 2024, they announced their engagement publicly on social media and they're planning a wedding. And one thing that also, like, goes on throughout this is that she's constantly like, "And then I found out that he owed someone or me a bunch of money, and I was really upset. But then a few months passed, and he hadn't, like, really paid anything back, but, like, he
He
wasn't
seemed like he was
he
making
seemed like he was doing
progress.
better, so we went on a big vacation and planned a wedding."
Yeah, or
2
it'll be like
weddings.
he made a payment plan with friends of mine because a
Right.
big thing that happens is that she
Oh, God.
discovers that he owes her friend's husband like several $100,000.
Yeah, like $200,000 in crypto that this friend of hers had given him for a luxury watch deal. And he told her, "Oh, well, I just haven't been able to find the right buyer for the watches yet." The friend says, "No, he told me that he did sell the watches, but the payments are just getting delayed. The transfers aren't coming through. He's not giving me the money." And they have a big come she's like, "Oh, no, you're gambling again." He's like, finally admits, "Oh, yes, I'm gambling again." They make a payment plan, and she's like, "See, it's fine. He was making payments on the plan, so of course we were going to travel abroad and plan a wedding." I'm like, "What about paying your friend back faster?" Faster! Like, you can
Yeah,
do that. You're not restricted to only paying.
the payment plan.
Take the
And
money that
and
you're gonna put toward the wedding and give it to your friend who got scammed out of $200,000 in crypto.
and she has said like these friends were like super understanding, wanted to be very supportive of her and of Martin, and like she checked with them about all of the
Yeah.
trips and that he said to go. Uh,
Yeah. And, listen,
So
she's like, "I had a travel blog that was a business, so I wanted to keep traveling to make money. Also, he needed to travel in and out of the country at certain points because of his non-citizen
yeah,
status. Like, you either might need to stay in the US or you might have to leave
which
depending on
is
where you're
both
at," which
very,
is
very
true.
true. Yeah,
That sounds crazy, but it's
that's
very true.
very true. Yeah.
And so, yeah, she's like, "We picked the cheapest trip, and it was Cartagena." I'm like, okay. Couldn't you just, like, cross the border?" But okay, sure." And so they're very understanding. It seems like one thing that comes through is that she has a very big supportive community. She has, like,
Yeah.
15 best friends, and then she has an outer circle of many more wonderful, supportive, understanding friends who are there for her even after getting scammed
And her
by her
family as
husband.
well.
And her family is big and very supportive. And so that is wonderful, but also probably part of what made her such a big target for this guy, because there are a lot of people that trusted him in part because they trusted her. And it turns out that he is asking a lot of them for money and being like, "Don't tell Onyeka, it's for a surprise for her." And they want to support her and make her life better. And that makes them very easy for him to manipulate. So more and more financial situations coming through. He keeps being like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've relapsed on the gambling." And she's like, "Okay, but like, we'll work on it." And then like 3 months go by and she's like, "I haven't heard anything about gambling in a while. I guess things are getting better. Let's
They're
definitely
not.
move forward with the wedding. I'm going to buy a wedding dress." At one point, he even convinced her to quit her job
Insane.
because he was going to take over financial responsibility. He's like, "You're not enjoying your job." Then she found his bank account information and it showed 34 cents. And she's like, "Oh my God, he's broke." But at this point, she still believes, by the way, that he has a Danish business account that has like $200,000 to $300,000 in it
And
or
he
euros in it.
keeps saying, it's coming. It's
He's
coming.
like, "That one is frozen by the Danish IRS for 18 months." At this, she has found him lying about every conceivable part of his financial situation. She's like, "Oh, but then in 7 more months, that money is gonna be unfrozen by the Danish IRS."
And I do, and I will say, I do think that a fairly common thing that can happen in these kind of like scam or like cult stories, is that there's such a high cost to grappling with the fact that you've been lied to long term, that
Yeah.
people will do some pretty crazy shit to stay in the delusion.
Yeah, I mean, he's photoshopping documents to prove to her that he's sent money that he hasn't sent, to prove to her that he has money that he doesn't have. And at certain points when she's kind of cornering him with evidence, he changes from being this very like loving, like "You're my dream girl, anything for you," to like kind of lashing out at her, threatening her, like accusing her of being a bad wife, not trusting him. And it all kind of comes to a head around the situation where they were planning the wedding and her parents were going to pay for the Nigerian wedding. And they were going to pay Onyeka and Martin for the white wedding, like the white dress, American wedding. But he started insisting that he was also going to pay for the Nigerian wedding. And
$10,000.
and I'm like, first of all, you guys shouldn't be taking money from her parents, given how much money you guys owe everyone, and like getting him mixed up in owing money seems like a bad idea. But also, like, he clearly doesn't have $10,000 to send her parents, but he says he does. So he keeps being like, "I've sent it, I've sent it, I've sent it. I don't know why it's not coming." She finally is like, "You never sent the money. I looked around on the Wire app that you're using. It's a completely different screen when you've actually sent the payment than the screenshot you showed me. Like, you're caught. I know you didn't send my mom the money." And he basically, as this all escalates, is like, "All right, we're done. I'm done. I don't want
I'm
this
leaving
anymore. I'm
you.
leaving you."
We
And he
need to
walks out.
protect our peace.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
And so he walks out and she ends up like basically begging him to come back, begging him to stay and being
She
like,
takes his passport and his green card for a bit.
so that he can't leave the country. And I think unfortunately for her, he is able to leave the country by going to the embassy. But she wanted to stay him to stay. She says now maybe kind of so that she could find closure on this, like really work through all of this. But she's telling him at least like, "You're my husband, like, we're gonna figure this out. I love you." After all
It's
of this, it's
very
hard to wrap your mind around.
delusional in these moments. She's very much like, "I love you. You're the love of my life. We're gonna work it out." And he's like, "We're done. I hate you. I never want to see you again." It's a very,
Right,
very incongruous tone of messages that they're exchanging at this point.
right. So, he leaves, he goes back to Denmark, and eventually he starts, like, love bombing her again and being like, "I want you back."
Yeah.
But by that time, she has already sought, like, support from her family and friends, and in the process, learned that he has been taking money from all of
All of
them.
them. All of them. Like every random close friend of hers that she's like
Friends,
basically ever had. Every
siblings,
family member.
cousins, parents.
It's crazy.
And the first place she hears this is from her sister who has come over to support her about the breakup. And she's like, "He does owe me $6,000." And Onyeka says that when she realized that he took money from her sister, It was the most heartbreaking moment in her life. She says, "My little sister is my world, and to know he took advantage of her was just so heartbreaking. At that moment, I 100% fell out of love with him."
So the scales kind of fall. It takes this.
It takes this. It is if I were the crypto friend, I'd be like, "Wait, so he scammed me out of $200,000?" And you were like, "I still love him so much, but he took $3,000 from your sister," and you're like, "He's dead to me." Be like, "Let me be a little bit less understanding right now."
She starts
But
calling this is when she starts calling other random friends, and they're
yeah.
all like, "He took between, like, $3 and $30,000 from me."
Yeah. Like, we don't find out the amount that he took from her parents
Right.
because it doesn't get to that point. She asks her parents if he took money from them, and they just are like, "Let's not worry about that right now." And from that, she understands that he
He
has,
did.
but she doesn't say how much. And she also starts digging a little bit. She's like, learned about some of his past connections, like his ex, because certain Danish accounts were like viewing her activity on Instagram once she started posting about him. She ends up contacting this ex-girlfriend who she had, I believe, blocked.
Yeah, she unblocks her. The girlfriend responds. The ex, they talk. This is when she finds out that their relationships did overlap for that like 4-month period.
Yeah.
And she also finds out that Martin had scammed this woman and all of her friends and family out of thousands of
Yeah.
dollars.
And they had been together for 7 years,
Yeah,
not
not
not the
4.
4 that he had told Onyeka, and, like, that's a really long time to be with someone who is a problem gambler, who apparently the doctors at the treatment facility told his family he had the worst gambling addiction they had ever seen.
It's very alarming stuff.
Very alarming. And, yeah, so she gets in touch with the family. He had said these horrible things about his older sister. His older sister ends up talking to her and is just like, "Yeah, he has, like, taken money from all of us, like,
And I had to cut him
I had to
kind of
cut
out of
him
my
off."
life.
Yeah, and Onyeka starts kind of being like, "And then I was mad at his family for not telling me about this." And I was like, "Onyeka, you knew about this, and you did not tell your family or friends, and they ended up giving him a bunch of money, so
Right.
glass houses."
Eek.
So in September 2025, she confirmed that she and Martin had broken up
Like on her
on Instagram,
Instagram.
and she canceled the wedding. She's like, "We're not together anymore." In early November, her divorce was finalized, and, like, she posted these story times, like, just a couple weeks
Weeks
later.
after it. Yeah. And she says there was like one last incident where he literally like rolled up in a car, like up to
Oh,
her. Like
yeah.
he was in Dallas, just sort of snuck up on her in a car, rolled down the window. And she says she screamed bloody murder and then sent him a final text that was like, "Get the fuck away from me."
Did you know that, like, I did watch all of these this morning, so it's very fresh, that she then heard from a friend that he had been, like, out in
Yes.
Dallas. Her friend had seen him at, like, 2 in the morning with a woman who she thought looked like a sex worker, and that he was taking money out of an ATM, and, like, it was a very off-putting part of the whole story because she's like,
It
"This woman was a
was.
1 out of
I
10,"
was
and
like,
she was,
that's
like,
not
a hooker, and I
necessary.
was like,
That was,
"Okay.
who cares? Like,
Yeah.
mm,
Okay." Well, anyway, that was, kind of a sour note to end things on, but they finally ended things, and she came on not long thereafter on TikTok to tell this whole story. So, now that we've laid all that out, we're gonna take a quick break, and when we get back, we're really gonna get into the response.
and we are back. So, obviously, this story blew up on TikTok and spurred a whole lot of conversation in many different directions.
Yeah. This is not the first story like this to go viral recently, and normally I don't watch them, which is one reason that I didn't watch this one
Well,
until we
they're
decided to
just
talk
so
about it. They're
long.
so long. I started watching the Risa Tisa one with, like, Who the Fuck
Yeah.
Did I Marry, her TikTok series, and I was just, like, daunted. I was like, "There's too many parts, and I'm tired."
Yeah, and they're really gripping, but then you're like 4 hours. Like
Yeah.
I simply
Like,
don't have the time.
you get deep in, and then all of a sudden you surface, and you're like, "There's still so many videos left," and, like, my life is slipping away from me. I was watching a lot of Onyeka's with my finger on the fast forward,
Oh, I did
actually.
watch them all at 2 times speed because I was
Yeah.
like, this simply has to go faster.
Yeah. But, like, there's always a a sort of ambivalent response to this kind of story because people who are scammed, some people feel sympathy and some people feel like, well, you were dumb and you let this happen to yourself. So you need to take accountability. You should be ashamed. Why should I feel sorry for you? And I think broadly speaking, those are kind of the two main reactions to this. She speaks again and again about how important it is to not shame the victims. And like a lot of romance scam victims talk about this, that like if you're ashamed and afraid to talk about it, then it makes it easier for these people to keep scamming.
And that is true.
It is true. And like on a practical level, it just seems like we all want to think I would never fall victim to something like this because I'm too smart. And there are many points in the story where I was like, I wouldn't do that. However, and like partly too because I couldn't do that. Like I don't have
Well,
money.
right. That's the thing. I was like, I just simply couldn't just casually give someone $10,000. Like,
Like
I
yeah.
couldn't.
No one will ever come to me and be like, "Did you give money to my boyfriend?" and have me say, "Yes, I gave him $200,000." If I had
It would be like
$200,000,
$200.
it will be in my high yield savings
Yeah.
account. It will not be
It would be
my
like
friend's
in my
boyfriend's
401k, like that I can't touch. Like I don't.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like I'm not draining my 401k for this. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It's like it's not happening. And I think that's partly why there isn't always as much sympathy because a lot of people are looking at this and they're like, you live a very comfortable lifestyle. You're traveling constantly. Even after you start losing the money and your friends are losing the money, you're still traveling, you're still spending money, you're still going out to fancy dinners. You still have money available. Like you're just coming back down to where most people are all the time if you lose all of this money, right? Like, why should I feel bad for you that someone was able to so easily take these excessive resources from you that most of us don't have?
On the other hand, like these romance scams have become increasingly common.
Hmm.
They are deeply damaging. They do overwhelmingly target women. And like they can genuinely devastate lives, like irrevocably.
Yeah.
Like Onyeka, it seems like she's hopefully ultimately going to be okay.
No, it's true. She's going to be okay because she has multiple good career,
Yeah,
like,
she can continue
income
to make
streams.
money, and luckily it seems like her family and friends were not financially damaged to the point of complete ruin.
Yeah.
But we don't know the full extent here, and like it's also clear to me from the fact that there's at least one other ex who seems to have had a similarly like widespread amount of damage done to her and her community, that like this person is a skilled con artist.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine honestly giving money to any friend of a friend or friend's partner who approached me. And
Certainly not for luxury Rolexes or whatever.
right, or if he's like, I
Luxury
want to buy an
Rolexes for-
Aston Martin, but my money is like tied up in Denmark right now. I'm like, okay, then
You don't
you
need
don't get to
one.
buy the Aston
Yeah.
Martin, like But the fact that he got so consistently convinced people to do that does indicate to me that he has.
There's a level of skill. Like she also says
yeah.
he scammed some like local like businessman who was like mentoring him, and they had 15 meetings, and like I don't know. Like there just are people, and like I have not to this extent, but I have known people in my own like circles who have like been duped out of like various things, right? Like I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
it's like hard. Like I think people need to do some real self-reflection when something like this happens, and at the same time I do think that someone like this is like a very, very dangerous person who clearly is very skilled.
And not everyone, like sometimes people are draining their entire retirement savings
That's what I
because of a
mean.
romance scam.
Yes.
Sometimes they are giving the last dollar that they have and then they have nothing. And like some people already have nothing, and so they literally have nothing to give. Some people like us are like, "I don't have anything that I would feel comfortable giving." For sure. So the fact that you have, like, $500,000 that you feel comfortable just, like, loaning maybe to a friend of a friend seems unrelatable. And I think that gets, like, mixed together, this sense of, like, you should have been smarter, and also, like, why did you even have these resources? That's not fair. Like, some of us don't have all of that. And especially when in the midst of that, you're, like, still living kind of a lavish lifestyle, it, like, triggers that resentment as well, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but it is true that, like, it doesn't help people, might be targeted by this sort of scam, people who might not always be drowning in resources that they can part with if we don't talk about these things. So, I'm hesitant to, like, come down too hard on this. Some people, I think, are coming from a different perspective, and, like, there have been some pretty harsh criticisms or some very pointed criticisms of this series. Um, many of her harshest critics, as she has said, um, in some TikToks have been Black women in particular, and Rachel Lindsay definitely spoke to some of these on Higher Learning, and I thought it was very interesting because, of course, we don't come from that experience, and there might always be elements of vantage points on this issue that we would not naturally look at it through. So it was
Yeah.
interesting to hear her discuss it.
And I think these criticisms were less about saying it is your fault that you got scammed or you deserved to get scammed, and more about um really looking sharply at the way that the story was being told, and
Mm,
like questioning what that said about the things that she was valuing about this partner.
yeah. Rachel Lindsay kind of put this into words on the episode by saying basically like you've got to realize how problematic it is that you glorify and praise whiteness. Like her contention, and I think a lot of other critics' contention, is that Onyeka was giving him a lot of leeway for his scammy ways because she felt like his whiteness and his Danishness and his blondness made him a prize, and that she was willing to excuse and turn a blind eye or work with him on a lot of huge flaws that if he were a Black man, she would not have cut him slack on. And so she says, "You need to self reflect why you were so proud. You would have never left this man. This man had to leave you. So the prize for you is having the white man. It didn't matter the addiction. It didn't matter that there were pennies in his bank account. It didn't matter the lies. It didn't matter that he had deceived one of your best friends. As long as you had this white man on your side, you were okay. And that's the question that you need to ask yourself in therapy." It's hard to like prove a counterfactual, right? Like men of all races and women do successfully run these scams, right? We don't know
Yes.
if it would have worked differently on Onyeka or not, but there are, critics pointing to some of the ways that she like talks so much about his identity and his looks and his white skin and blonde hair, and whether those are also pointing towards like her thinking that it was kind of like impressive or valuable that that was who he was, and that she had this, like, glorified perception of him because of that, that led her to still see him in this elevated position even when she found out that he, like, had no money and had a huge gambling problem and was lying to her constantly. That's not something that I feel qualified to weigh in on, but that's definitely
No,
been
but
a
I
big
do
part of
think,
what has been
yeah,
in
I
the
think it's
conversation
it's
around it.
something that we wanted to bring up and highlight. But yeah, obviously as two white women, like that is more of like an in community conversation, that as people who are not in that community, we can only kind of watch and like listen.
Rachel had a TikTok of this clip from her podcast posted. Onyeka commented and said, "Rachel, you of all people know what it's like to have folks run wild with a false narrative. You don't know me enough to make these claims. I'm sharing my experience, not glorifying anybody. I honestly thought better of you." I will say if I were Onyeka, I would feel really wounded because Rachel did not hold back at all
She did not.
in the podcast. So I understand the response, but Rachel's contention is very much just like, you need to take accountability. You need to listen to the Black women who are trying to hold you accountable and not like go on TikTok again and be like, Black women are being mean to me. On this point. So that's the conversation that seems to be ongoing. And she has, I think, said that she would invite Onyeka on the podcast. I would be interested to hear them
So would
bring
I.
that, like, yeah, I would be interested to hear them talk it through because it's not an element that Onyeka has. Like, she's posted a lot of follow-ups speaking to different things people have brought up to her, but it's not a thread that she's really dived into. And I think that it would be interesting to hear them discuss it. I think also part of what Rachel talked about that's on a slightly different topic, but I thought was interesting is like she didn't think that Onyeka was taking enough accountability. Unlike Risa Tisa was not talking enough about how stupid she was. I actually do think that she said a bunch of times that she should have seen what was happening, but maybe she wasn't quite like beating herself up openly
Yeah, this
enough.
is a criticism I saw from a lot of people, and I will say, like, upon watching bits and pieces of the videos again, there were several times where she did say, like, that she really regretted her actions and she feels a deep amount of shame and that there are things she should have seen.
Yeah. But I think
Um,
they found her like some people found her
demeanor.
demeanor too
Yeah.
cheerful, like, oh, she's enjoying this too much. And especially because the Risa Tisa TikTok series blew up not so long ago and she had a lot of opportunities come out of that. There was a thought, well, oh, maybe she is just excited to have a story to tell that might get her that kind of
Yeah. I also
success.
saw some people be like, look, you should get your bag from this. Like, tell your story, but also you're giving us 4 hours of content to engage with. So, like, we're allowed to have feelings and a response after, like,
Yeah.
spending all of that time engaging. So,
Yeah. And it's hard, like, she can say, like, oh, I understand now what was happening, but when she's telling the story, it doesn't always seem like she understands now what's happening, maybe because she's just trying to, like, keep you in the moment, but it can be infuriating at times where you're like, "Why do you still think that's true?" Like, "Why does it seem like you still believe that?" And, it drives people to, distraction.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely a frustrating
Yeah.
listen and watch at times. I will also say that she has made a follow-up video claiming that she received messages from multiple people who have been scammed by Martin, like, in the last few weeks, like, since she's
Yeah.
been making these videos,
Yeah.
which is just like this fucking guy.
Yeah. I mean, this is where I kind of do end up feeling like the victim focus is just, like, a little misguided because many different victims. It's not like, "Oh, it took this one victim with this one pathology that we've diagnosed to fall for this."
Right.
He's not even that good looking. He has nothing going for him. You know, Many people are falling for this sort of thing, who come from many different backgrounds, and with this specific man, many of them are falling for it, and so that, I think, is kind of the crux of the issue here. Um, and
I'm like, the my main takeaway is this man should be held, like, criminally
yeah,
liable at some point, and I hope he
yeah.
is.
Oh, one thing that I forgot to say that I think might also inform where many of the commenters are coming from, the critics, with thinking that she was maybe fetishizing his whiteness a little bit, and that was part of why she didn't catch on as quickly as she should have, is that Redditors have surfaced that she apparently submitted them to an Instagram account that features white men who date Black women, like one of those sort of like,
Eek.
yeah, s- yeah, a little off-putting, and their photos and story were posted in June, as in this June, as in, like, very shortly before they ended their relationship, and so much had already happened, and what appears to be her, submission text, like, they just post a photo reel of them, It's called White Men Dating Black Women Club, the one I found. Posts a bunch of photos of them, and then this caption that is, attributed to Onyeka, and she talks about how it wasn't easy, their long distance relationship, but we made it work with love and communication. My advice is to trust each other and always put each other first. That's how we made it through long distance and why we have such a strong relationship. So grateful for a love better than my wildest dreams. So I think
Yikes.
that there is this sense that, like, there was a desire to keep up the appearances of this perfect godly man, like, picked me, and we have this perfect, wonderful relationship, and or godlike, I guess I should say, like, chiseled and, like, so like, such a catch. And she was hiding from friends and family, almost all of them, that he had taken her money, that he had a gambling addiction, all these things that might have helped people around her protect themselves. There was some perception management happening around their relationship at the expense of other people's safety. And the white men dating black women club, like, submission, I think for many people is just a little bit like, okay, so that's where that's coming from.
Yeah.
But I do think that all things being equal, it's better for her to be sharing it now than never. And I do think it's better that we hear about these things than not, even though it means victims do have to open themselves up to a lot of criticism.
I mean,
And
unfortunately, and like I love a scam story, so I have watched like a good amount of content about romance scams, and often there is no path to like justice legally or
yeah,
criminally. And kind of the only way to stop some of these serial offenders is for them to be like Googleable
yeah,
in some capacity to like warn potential victims off. So in that way, I do think she is doing something good. And that doesn't mean that no one's allowed to criticize her.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think it's just it's all a little bit sticky.
yeah. Yeah, I do feel like maybe many people viewing wish that she had spent more time being like, I'm a moron. I should have known at this point. I can't believe I let this happen. And maybe that was just how it was presented, that there was not a lot of emphasis on that. But ultimately, yeah, we need to know who these men are, because when I'm out there, jet setting and I meet a tall, muscular Danish man, I need
And
to
he's
know that he's
like,
on the level,
give me $3,000.
Yeah, and I'm like, "Oh, like, if I just leave my husband and children, you'll take care of everything?" Like, "Here's my 401k." I need to know that that's gonna pan out. I need to be able to Google. So, should we move on?
We
Should we take a little
must.
break, and then we will get back in there with the rest of our breakups?
And we are back. Let's talk about Grant and Juliana. Remember them?
Yeah, I vaguely do. I was doing my reading on this for the episode, and I was like, "Wait, that was, like, so recent." Like, I feel like it was, like, 4 years ago.
I've because this is the thing, and we've talked about this before. Sometimes with the Bachelor season, especially when it's kind of lackluster, you just have all the information up in the old noggin, and you gotta like Control Alt Delete it.
Yeah, no, it's gone. I even just now checked again. I was like, "I'm gonna say that it was just earlier this year, and I'll sound like a moron." Nope, it was, in fact, earlier this
It
year.
was literally this year. It feels like a million years ago. So we
Ugh,
just really haven't known much about the details of
yeah,
Juliana and Grant's breakup, which happened, several months after we saw them get engaged on the show. And then Juliana very recently appeared on the Bachelor Happy Hour podcast and did talk a little bit more about what led to the end of her
yeah,
relationship.
and unfortunately, because she went on Bachelor Happy Hour, we still know very few
Yeah.
details about what happened.
We got to get some more skilled
We
interviewers.
gotta get some follow-up
Yeah.
questions.
God, my biggest like desire from any reunion interview, like ask a goddamn
Yeah.
follow-up.
Do not get, like, the juiciest tidbit that we've gotten yet, and then suddenly be like, "So, like, what did you do to pursue your happiness after the like, many months
You're
after
like, thank you,
this?"
Joe.
Joe,
Thank
please.
you.
We're finally starting to get somewhere. So, what she does reveal is that the breakup was rooted in After the Final Rose. She says that moment from the After the Final Rose special, Latia was on stage. She claimed, that Grant had called her his number one emotional connection. She made a comment, I remember, too, like, about how she wouldn't want to kind of be the one chosen and have a relationship built on the way that things played out at the
Yeah.
end, that I think many people took very much as sort of shade at Juliana for being with him after how things went down. So it was a rocky After the Final Rose, but we're all watching, we're like, well, that seemed rough for Juliana and Grant, but like maybe they've got it all under. Maybe they're fine.
And
No.
I thought they did because it was a while. Like
Yeah.
they didn't break up like immediately. But
Yeah.
apparently no, it was pretty much cursed from jump.
Yeah. Yeah, that rocked their relationship to its core and ended up being apparently what led to their downfall. So she says that that night after taping the special, they got into a huge fight. She says that she like said some hurtful things. And when they woke up the next morning, she says the first thing he said to me was he had game planned different ways we could announce our breakup. And I hadn't even made that decision on my end. Wow. Okay. So it sounds like the night of After the Final Rose, they basically broke up,
At
right?
least in his mind.
In his mind, what happens next? We will never know. Joe does not ask. He starts talking about something else completely. No follow-up whatsoever.
No,
They
I'm
didn't
like,
announce this breakup for
for months. I'm
months.
like, were you broken up? Did you dial it back? Like what? And
Right.
this is then made all of the stories that like came out about this incredibly confusing because I was reading these like summations of the podcast before I had a chance to listen to it and I was like I literally can't follow. I don't understand.
I know. I know. I mean, was was she, like, basically saying we planned the breakup and then he decided that we should do that, and I hadn't even decided to do that, but he had all these ideas about rolling it out, and so we waited? Or is she saying, "I didn't wanna break up, and so we talked it through and we
Didn't.
stayed together, and
That
then
was
later
sort
we
of
broke
my
up"?
read that like
Yeah, I would guess the second, but we certainly don't
but
know.
we don't know. Fucking Joe.
Fucking Joe. So what we do know is that Latia moment on stage, or the moments, the allegations that she made were very hurtful to their bond. Ultimately, she thinks that was like the root of why they broke up, regardless of when it happened. And she also discusses her relationship with some of the other women after the show, especially Latia. And she says that Latia actually also upset her after the show because she had talked to Latia on FaceTime or something. Latia had let her know that her producer had told her the outcome. I believe that Juliana got engaged to Grant. And I guess they normally don't share that with anyone, even
Mm.
the other person. So she was really surprised that Latia knew, and she asked Latia not to tell anyone, and she agreed. But then she did tell some of the other women. And so she was, like, really put off by that. And she also references that she was upset by some comments Latia made on podcasts, suggesting that Juliana's sexual availability gave her the edge. And I was looking around for what she could be referencing. It seems like she's mostly referencing an April episode of the Relationship with Kami Crawford podcast, which I believe we talked about at the time,
Yeah.
probably. It's so long ago now, but it sounded familiar. Latia was asked if she knew whether Grant was intimate with anyone else in the fantasy suite, and Latia says she knows and that he told people. I guess she knows that he did, is the implication. And Zoe commented on a clip of it on social, "Definitely wasn't with me," because Juliana had been like, "Oh, and then Zoe chimed in too." And I was like, she must be talking about this. Basically, that they are
Yeah.
both, like, speaking up to say, like, he slept with Juliana. Juliana's the one.
Which also I will say is very common. That
That
like often if the lead knows someone's going to be the pick, they might be more open
right.
to being like physically intimate with just them.
Right. And I think Zoe was annoyed because, like many distant third people on the show, people assume that they are just brought along because the lead wants to have sex with them.
Right.
And I think often the lead needs a third person there. They don't necessarily always have sex with someone that they are sure they're not going to pick because they're like, they can have sex in their life. Like, do they need to complicate their life that much if they really know they're not going to pick that person? And so it was like people have been basically acting like he just like brought me around so he could smash, and like that's disrespectful. And it seems like Juliana really took this personally and was like, they're calling me easy.
Yeah.
It seems like an uncomfortable situation, but the way that she framed it is like they were basically saying that I was easy and that's why I won. When I went back and found what she
You were
was
like,
talking about,
I
I
don't
was like,
know that
I don't
really
know that that
bears
was.
out here.
Yeah, I don't think Zoe was even thinking about you at all. She was just like, to be clear, he did not like bring me along just to have sex with me and bounce. Latia also said that it may have been the thing that changed Grant's mind about their relationship, that like she wouldn't have sex and that she wasn't available for that. And she says she would be okay with that. Like her faith is important to her. It wasn't on the table. Um, and so I think that is the insinuation that Juliana feels was made, that
Sure.
like
It
being
gave her
willing
the
to have
edge
sex gave her
because
the
she
edge.
was open to it. Yeah.
Yeah, but like people do need to talk like about their own experiences to a certain extent. And like I was personally not thinking about Juliana when I'm thinking about Latia's experience with Grant, where I'm like, oh, I guess that
Same.
means Juliana put out, but like I know some people were. It just gets very messy. She also went on Almost Famous more recently, Latia, but from what I could find skimming the transcript, she didn't say much about all of this, except that it didn't make sense for her to have sex in the fantasy suites because of her faith and because her friends might be about to get engaged to this man. She also says separately that Juliana's timeline might be different than hers around marriage. And maybe that was more compatible with
Which
him.
I think this was something that we discussed at the time.
Yeah, like it just, none of it really seemed to me directly like Latia being like she was easy and so he picked her because she was easy. Just like Juliana wasn't in a rush to get married. You know, I was really like holding back on physicality and all these things. Like maybe those things influence. I think that's all probably very valid for her to think.
Yeah.
But it seems like it really sticks in Juliana's craw. And she's like, we're not close.
I mean, I can also understand that it's just sort of inevitably a little bit isolating when you end up with the
Yeah.
lead, like from the other women that you may have been close with in the house. And then once that relationship also doesn't work out, it
Yeah.
can feel, I can imagine that would be just like put you in a very frustrating position
Yeah.
where you're like, I don't have a man and I don't have these close friends either.
Fortunately, she has Allie Joe.
Well, thank God for that.
Yeah, I'm so happy for them. Grant also went live recently and like briefly touched on the Juliana and Latia situations. Mostly to say that he didn't want to talk about them, but he did say in this live that what changed his mind about Latia was that she was Mormon.
I mean, I feel like this was our guess at the time.
Yeah, I mean, big surprise, but it's like everything is so bound up together. But he's not like, oh, she wouldn't have sex. She wanted to get married too fast. He was like, I didn't think that I could really make things work with her being Mormon. That's just such a different
And to
faith
be
that I didn't
honest,
know
I
much about.
do kind of agree.
Yeah, I'm like, that actually is valid. He's like, I wish I found out earlier in the show, but I found out pretty late. And I don't think that it was like necessarily wrong for her not to tell me, but like I probably would have told someone earlier because it was just like I couldn't figure out how it would work. And I'm like, yeah, that's one of the like three things that people have speculated might have been the thing. They're all kind of connected, like sex, marriage timeline, Mormonism, and like
They just weren't a fit.
they weren't a fit.
And that's, yeah, that is what it is. It also just seems like, honestly, both Juliana and Grant are still trying to like not go too much into details. And so we're just like never going to get
Yeah. I
real
feel like at
clarity.
some point someone is going to get one of them on a podcast and ask a couple follow-up questions.
Yeah, no, it's going to be in like 2 years. And then I'll
And
be
like,
like, who?
and so did you break? I know, right? I feel like, no, we don't, we've moved on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No space left.
Yeah, I just like cannot believe that they were on the precipice of like a, and so did you break up that night? Or did you decide
No,
to
they're just
did
like,
you
move it along.
what is
Okay.
happening?
Thank you.
Oh my god. So, do we have anything else to say about Grant and Juliana, or should we move on to Kat and
Certainly
Dale?
not. We got to move on to Kat and Dale. Can't say this breakup shocked me.
No. It was, like, kind of a matter of time.
Yeah.
In mid-November, breakup speculation began. Fans noticed that Kat was not following Dale on Instagram.
That's
She
pretty much like a direct
Yeah,
tell. Like,
yeah. I mean, they sometimes when they're like the show is still airing, you can get away with that, but it's like, why would you not be
like
following him?
right. Or like, oh, they haven't posted together in a while. Okay, that
Right.
can mean nothing. If someone has unfollowed,
Yeah,
it's not good.
it's not good. She also left a seemingly shady comment on a video that he posted. He was doing this like vaguely inspirational post while putting on an extremely loud shirt, very Dan Flash's shirt. And he's like, I'm in a better place than 1 year ago and like so much better in every way. In dark times, we should remember that brighter times are coming. Then he says, life is not always easy. Situations are not always perfect. When you can reflect back and look at some of the tough times and how you got through them, it puts a lot in perspective. Nothing too deep, just chopping it up. Stay the course. Which, like, whatever. Inspirational word salad.
Classic Dale.
Kat commented and then apparently deleted, ha 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 ha, rich coming from you. Not like a loving girlfriend comment to
No,
put on your
not really.
boyfriend's vapid inspirational post. So, especially it seems like maybe it's referring to the stay the course part.
That was my read.
Yeah. Uh, so Us Weekly confirmed in late November that they're no longer together.
No
So,
surprises there. Maybe we'll learn more at some point, but
I mean, they were only together for like a few months, which like is crazy because in
yeah.
my mind, Paradise happened like 8 months ago, but it was like 2 months
June.
ago. But like it ended in the fall, right?
I just mean they were together a little
Yeah.
longer.
No, that's true. But like
But
when
still,
we
they
saw, but when I mean,
yeah,
when we saw them together choosing each other in like,
it was like 2 months. No, it was like
it
2
was
months.
September.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, let's say 3 months. 3 months of public relationship. I feel like I've lived a lifetime since then. But yeah, they've run their course. I hope that they can both find someone not on the beach in the future.
Meanwhile, Spencer and Jess and Alex and Andrew and Jeremy and Bailey also
Yeah,
going strong.
going strong. I honestly, if I had to guess who broke up first,
It would
it
have been Kat and
actually would
Dale.
have been Kat and Dale. You would think maybe
100%.
Jeremy and Bailey, but I kind of
No.
because Jeremy
No,
had
I
done
was
this like
like
big shitty thing to
I was like,
Bailey,
but
but
now
once they got
they're
past that,
they were great. And
they
also
just
they live in the same place, which
they live in
really
the same
helps.
place. Like all of those other couples, I'm like their personalities seem to mesh really well, and a lot
their
of what we saw from
lives.
Kat and Dale is that they thought that the other person was very hot and like admirable, but they were always clashing.
Yeah. No. Zero surprises here. I'm going to be real honest.
Yeah.
Wishing them both the best on their separate journeys.
Yeah. And this is kind of the most earth-shattering
This
breakup of
one
all.
shook me. I'm not going to lie.
Alexa and Brennon of Love is Blind season 3 have filed for divorce.
I was genuinely surprised by this divorce.
Me too. Call me a fool, a fool for love. Yeah, they met on the Dallas season of Love is Blind. That means we now have no remaining couples from Dallas season 3.
Yeah, I think Dallas and Chicago, right? It's all all divorced.
I believe so. Yes. Yeah. So they're the second to separate, I think, this year. There
Yeah.
were 2 couples married. They both separated this year. Colleen and Matt announced their separation earlier this year.
And that was not a surprise because
Not a
people
surprise.
thought that they maybe should have broken up basically from the minute they got together.
Yeah, the weird thing I realized is that both of the couples that were left had, like, sort of dark, like, abuse allegations, like, hovering over
I
them.
had forgotten. I really had forgotten the stuff about Brennon, to be honest, until
Well,
you
the thing
threw it
about
into
Brennon
our
is
doc.
I don't think we found out about it until after we had watched the show.
Right.
And so it wasn't really, like, integrated into my consumption of the show, and, like, so it didn't, like, stick with my memory of their relationship. But yeah, a lot of people thought that Matt showed a lot of signs of being abusive to Colleen on the show, and then these allegations came out about Brennan that he had assaulted an ex. And so both of these couples had these sort of dark things hovering over them. They're both now divorced. We don't know if that's related to those dark clouds of suspicion, but just to note.
I think the
Alexa,
real reason I was surprised about this divorce is that they fairly recently had a daughter.
yes, she was born July 2024. Her name is Vienna, so she's a little over a year old. Um, the thing is that that's actually not an uncommon time to divorce. And, you know, putting aside everyone's I saw so many comments on social being like, "Thank God she walked all over him. She was so disrespectful to him. He was such a doormat. He finally grew some balls." I know there are also people who are like, "Thank God," because this abuse allegation was always really concerning,
Yeah.
but it could be related to neither of those things. We don't know. The reality is that having a child can really affect a relationship. Not every relationship can withstand the changes that come, or it could be unrelated to that as well, you know?
That's the thing. It was like it also could just be that a lot of relationships end at some point. And this season filmed in 2021. So, they have been together for 4 years. A lot of relationships end after a few years. So we just don't really
It's true.
know. So little bits of details have been leaking out given the filings. Brennan was actually the one to file for divorce on November 5th, which a lot of people made a lot of hay of. And I was like, someone has to be the one to file. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And his filing stated that he and Alexa had stopped living together at or around this date. News reports have quoted his filing as saying that, quote, the marriage has become insupportable because of discord or conflict of personalities that destroys the legitimate ends of the marriage relationship and prevents any reasonable expectation of reconciliation.
Yeah, and I also saw a lot of people latching on to this language, especially to be like, "He's finally sick and tired of her domineering bullshit." May be true, but the reality is that this is, like, the standard irreconcilable differences language in Texas. I saw some Texan lawyers commenting about this, and I looked into it. It does, like, appear at the top of their, like, statutes governing marriage dissolution in Texas, verbatim. Like, that's just the
Yeah.
boilerplate language. So that doesn't really tell us anything. In fact, what then happened is that, according to Us Weekly, Alexa responded on December 4th, denying legally responded, denying his allegations and alleging fault on his side. Basically, she's like, it's not like irreconcilable differences. He fucked up. And I don't know if there are any more details on that will come out. But according to Us Weekly, she is asking for more than an even split. She's asking for more of the property for the following reasons: fault in the breakup of the marriage, need for future support, wasting of community assets by the spouse. Interesting. And
Yeah.
the need for attorney fees.
That is very interesting. The wasting of community assets.
Well, not to be like gambling addiction pilled by the Danish deception, but I do feel like gambling, the easy access to life-ruining gambling is gonna become a huge issue in heterosexual relationships because straight men are just being, like, force-fed gambling app
So
advertising,
depressing.
like, 100% of the time now. Not that we have no idea that that's what's happening. I'm just like, that's now where my mind jumps to first is, like, this man probably is on FanDuel. Maybe not.
We don't know. The
We don't
truth
know.
is, we do not know a lot about this
Yeah.
divorce. Maybe we will learn more. Maybe we won't. this is what we know for now.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's sad. I'm always, like, sad when a couple breaks up unless I was really convinced that they were not good for each other, and they seemed happy, you know? This abuse allegation was concerning, and it was a little murky. He was never convicted of anything. He according to the Daily Beast, which dug up the police report, he had been dating this woman for 3 months. They got into a fight, on January 27th, 2021, and they were both drinking and having a good time before they got into an argument, and he asked her to leave, police say. And then she refused to leave. He allegedly became more upset, grabbed her by the arms, and threw her against a wall, causing her to strike her head on the wall and knocking her unconscious for a brief moment. When she woke up, he was allegedly hitting her with both hands, pushing and scratching her. So very alarming, right? I
Very
remember this,
alarming
that we were
stuff.
like, yikes, that's very alarming. He was not like a grand jury declined to indict him. Um, and he later posted bond in May after the grand jury declined to indict. And the article was a little unclear on this. It suggests a possible second arrest or something because it was after seemingly that legal process had concluded,
Right. That's very
but unclear what it
confusing.
had to do with. But this all would like that would have been weeks before filming the show. Like this all happened the year that he filmed the show. But he wasn't indicted. He didn't go to trial, he wasn't convicted. And at the time that this came out, he commented publicly on Instagram that the charges were false. He said the grand jury threw it away as a no bill, no validation to the claim due to there being evidence that contradicted the accusation. The report was thrown out. My thoughts and prayers go out to actual victims. So that
Hard
is
to
kind of
litigate.
yeah, because because it was never proven in court, we don't know why, like, he has said why they threw it out. We actually don't know why independently it was thrown out. We don't know that it didn't happen. We also can't say that he was convicted of it, so we don't know for sure that it did. But, um, very upsetting stuff.
I just hope that they're individually okay, like for the sake of their daughter, that they are able
Yeah.
to like co-parent in a healthy way. Like they do have a child together. They are going to be tied together.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that things go smoothly as possible. I know Alexa is like a divisive figure in her own right. Like a lot of people saw her as being kind of high maintenance and abrasive, walking all over him, etc. But I think we were drawn to Alexa and wanted the best for her. She's like, I think, one of the only plus size women who has actually featured in a
Yeah.
significant role on the show, who found love, who had such a strong sense of confidence and just like seemed to really know who she was. And she just was very much who she was, you know, and Brennon seemed to really like that. And it was just like,
It was a nice love story to watch. It
yeah,
was.
it was. Um, so bit of a bummer. But, wishing everyone healing and smooth co-parenting in the future, and I think that that is our last breakup that we that we have to
That
discuss
is
right
our
now.
last breakup out of the 4.
Should I end with just, like, a little wedding nugget? A little wedding cherry on the top? I think
Sure.
I think you know this,
I
Emma.
do.
Cassie Randolph is married
To
to
Brighton.
her longtime boyfriend, Brighton.
No last name needed because his Instagram handle is just at Brighton.
I think it's Reinhardt, but yeah, it's his like he's a musician and
He's
Brighton is his.
Brighton.
If your name is Brighton, then you can definitely just be a mononymic
Yeah,
performer, right?
I support him.
No one else is out there trying to be Brighton. You know, you can be Brighton.
Also, Cassie's sister is apparently dating Glenn Powell, so it's just a lot going on for the family.
A lot going on in the Randolph clan. Plus it's Christmas, you know, which that's a different thing. That's Rudolph. You guys, I've talked too long.
I thought you were
I've
going
talked too
there
long.
because like Michelle Randolph has been in like random bad made for TV Christmas movies.
That's so true. Oh my gosh, I want to watch one in honor of her sister's wedding. to Brighton Reinhardt. It's nice to know that love still exists, and this Bachelor alum's husband has so far not been exposed for being a scammer of any kind.
And I love
So,
that for her.
Love that. So on that note, that's it for this episode of Love to See It with Emma and Claire. If you're watching this on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe to our channel.
Love to See It is a presentation of Odyssey. The show is produced by us, Claire Fallon and Emma Gray. Our production assistant is Tatiana Knies-Smith, who also edits our video. This episode was edited by John Bahar. Our theme music is by Tamar Haviv, and our art is by Aaron Nestor.
If you like the show, please follow the show, rate us 5 stars, leave a review, and of course, tell all of your friends about our show. But do not tell them to send us large sums of money. We are fine. We do not need their crypto.
No, we're out of the game. We're out of the game. If you want to get in touch, you can email us at claireandemmapod@gmail.com. But again, no romance scams allowed.
You can also find us on TikTok at Love to See It Pod and Instagram at Claire and Emma Pod. And you can find our newsletter, Rich Text, on Substack at claireandemma.substack.com.
I'm also on Blue Sky at Emma Gray and on Instagram at Emma Lady Rose.
And I'm at Claire E. Fallon. Special thanks to the team at Odyssey, Eric Donnelly, Peter Arriaga, Kate Rose, Moira Curran, Melissa Wester, and Hillary Ship.
We'll be back soon.
Can you keep